Hey everybody, welcome to WASD20. My name is Nate, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 ways that D&D players can up their game and better contribute to a great shared experience at the gaming table. So a few weeks ago I posted a video called 5 Tips for New Dungeons & Dragons Players, and I will put a link to that one right up there. I definitely recommend you check it out. Now here in this video I'm giving 5 tips that are upping the challenge rating a little bit, and I'm hoping that for newcomers and veterans alike, these 5 tips will stretch you maybe out of your comfort zone a little bit, and overall just contribute to more fun at the gaming table. So let's hear them. Tip number 1 is this: share the spotlight. Get other players at your table involved and engage them. You can do this in a couple practical ways. One is by asking them things in character. Ask them about themselves, draw them out a little bit. Try to get to know them as a character by asking them about their past in ways that make sense in the context of the game. Try to have real conversations that traveling and adventuring companions might have. Another way that you can share the spotlight is by getting players involved when you think there might be expertise in a certain area. So if my character is not very good at something, but I know that their character is, don't just say, if there's a lock to pick, rogue, do your thing, but rather, in character a little bit, try to defer to expertise and think a little bit deeper than rogue lock picking. Think about, hey, in your background, I think you've dealt with similar things. How did you deal with that? And even if you don't know if they have an expertise in something, ask for their opinion, especially that quiet player. Say, what do you think? And draw them out and get them more involved. Especially if you find yourself as the most talkative member of the group, find time to intentionally stay quiet and let others speak up and try to get them more involved. Tip number 2, contribute to the fun of the entire group. Being a good player means being considerate of others. It means realizing that this game that you're coming together to play is not all about you and you having fun. It's about everyone coming together and having fun, and sometimes that involves a little bit of give and take. If there are people at your game who don't seem to be enjoying something your character is doing, consider stopping, but again, these are things you need to talk out. Open and clear communication is best, and sometimes compromise is needed. Realize that it isn't your responsibility to make sure that everyone has fun as a player, but at the same time, it isn't just the GM's responsibility. And as a player, take some responsibility for the fun of everyone at the table. Tip number 3 is one that I have found really helpful as someone who doesn't improvise very well, or at least it didn't at first come very naturally to me as a player. And that is, consider a little bit of extra player prep. Normally we think of the dungeon master doing almost all the prep, and the players maybe just digging out the character sheet, maybe leveling up, and that's pretty much the extent of the prep. But here are some things to consider as a player for how you might prepare to be a great active player at the table. Make a list of things your character might say. Perhaps these are little quips or sayings that make sense with your character's religious or cultural background. Like in Narnia, for example, which I was reading to my kid the other day, characters will say, "By the lion," or in the Shade Vale in Aranoth, characters will say, "By the blood of the old one." So things like that can kind of spice things up and can make people feel a little more immersed, and they can just be a lot of fun. Think of some ways that your character might be able to interact with the other characters in the group. Maybe you could think of a goal that your character has for the session. Maybe you could think of some awesome new battle maneuvers to try and just some new ways of describing things to spice it up. Now, this tip, again, might rub some people the wrong way, especially people who are really good at improv. And I've seen people who can just narrate the most amazing things, and it just blows my mind. It's just like, man, how do they come up with this stuff? And that's just not me. So for me, I'll just occasionally take down a couple notes. It's something I've done less and less, but it's something that certainly helped me when I was fairly new to the hobby and had a lot of trouble improvising cool stuff on the spot. I was inspired for this tip by a video from my friend Juice from Tabletop Gaming with Juice, did quite a while back. I think it was almost 2 years ago now, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. You can check that out. Tip number 4 is one that's related to tip number 3 in terms of the extra player prep, and that is consider a character journal. What I'm talking about here is writing down some reflections from the perspective, in a first-person perspective, of your character. I think this can really be a helpful private exercise in terms of you discovering your own character a little bit more so that you can role play them better after trying to get in their head a little bit and write down some things that they might be thinking. But I actually had a player in a game I was a part of share his own character journal in the Facebook group I was a part of for the rest of the group. He was fairly new to the group, so it was a really great way for us to get to know his character a little bit and get a little bit of meta knowledge. And also, I'm sure it was very helpful for him in terms of discovering his character himself. So this is something that can be really cool, and it's a great thing to share between group members if you think players can avoid metagaming with that knowledge. And sometimes it's just a great way to develop the story and develop a better shared experience at the table. I was inspired by this a while back, and I actually did a player journal video from the perspective of my character Erdon, who is a wood elf from Shadevale in the Provokers campaign, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. You can check out that little player journal. It's a little bit cheesy, maybe a little bit cliche in some ways, but I really enjoyed making it, and it was helpful for me to learn to roleplay that character a little bit better. Tip number 5 is try a different voice. Now, I'm not just talking about an accent here. I know not everyone is good at accents, and you don't have to talk in some ridiculous tone, although that's part of the fun of the game for some people. And I know that for other people, at the same time, they are totally against it, and they find it really weird. They very much dislike it. But anyway, I encourage you to try to talk like your character. And maybe that just means talking a little slower, a little more gruffly, a little faster, a little more high pitch, a little more cheerful than you normally are, whatever it is. Or sure, go ahead and try some Scottish brogue. Go for it. I just know that for me, it is a fun part of the game. And secondly, it really does help me distinguish when I am talking in character, which can help me better think in character, which is definitely one of my goals when I play Dungeons & Dragons, to think in character. Again, that's a preferred style and some don't like it, but I encourage you to try it. So those are my 5 tips for you guys this time. Thanks so much for joining me. I also want to hear from you in the comments down below. Let me know if you have tried some of these 5 tips before and put them into practice, or seen others at your table put them into practice, and has it helped? Has it contributed to a better shared experience at the table? And what other advice would you give to people who are looking to improve as players of Dungeons & Dragons? 2 other things before we go. 1, follow me on Facebook. I'm putting the link right down there. I've been posting a lot more to Facebook recently, even some exclusive Facebook videos here and there, so definitely follow WASD20 on Facebook. And lastly, I really want to say thank you to the patrons. Patrons are monthly supporters. They help me do what I do here, and I really appreciate it. If you're interested in learning how you can become a patron, there's also some pretty cool rewards. I encourage you to check out the link right up there. And yeah, that's all for this one, everybody. Thanks for watching. Take care. You'll see me again very soon.